The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was silent. 12 different species sat around the massive circular table, their various forms creating strange shadows under the blue lights. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales, others had fur or smooth skin like metal. But today, they all shared the same confused expression. Elder Zephahai floated in the center of the room. The ancient being was made of pure energy, looking like a star that had learned to think. The Cathar were old when most species were still crawling in mud. They never came to council meetings. They watched from far away and only spoke when the galaxy was about to end. That's why everyone was worried. Council members, Zephahai's voice echoed without sound, appearing directly in their minds. We come with urgent news. There is danger approaching. Admiral Karath of the Zephkri Dominion leaned forward. His blue skin was marked with battle scars, and his forearms were crossed. What kind of danger, Guardian? The plague worlds are contained. The dark nebula hasn't moved in 1,000 years. Zephahai's energy form flickered like a candle in wind. The danger comes from a small world. Third planet from a yellow star. The locals call their world Earth. They call themselves humans. Silence filled the room again. Then High Counselor Merdena of the Tal Ethri started laughing. Her silver tentacles wiggled with amusement. Humans, we know of them. They barely have space flight. They fight each other over water and land. Their weapons are primitive nuclear devices. You do not understand. Zephahai's form grew brighter with urgency. We have watched them for 50,000 of their years. They are unlike anything the galaxy has seen before. Admiral Karath pulled up a holographic display. Earth appeared in the center of the table, spinning slowly. Cities dotted the surface, connected by roads and flight paths. Look at this world, Guardian. They've had nuclear weapons for less than a century. They've had space flight for even less. They haven't even unified their own planet. The display showed different colored sections across Earth's surface. Over 200 separate nations, Admiral Karath continued. Different languages, different beliefs, constantly fighting wars. Their history is nothing but conflict and chaos. They can't even agree on simple things like what calendar to use. Representative Thakmar of the Hive clicked his mandibles in what passed for insectoid laughter. Our scans show they still use fossil fuels. They pollute their own air and water. Half their population doesn't have access to clean drinking water, yet they spend massive resources on weapons to kill each other. Zephahai's energy form pulsed desperately. You see only the surface. You do not see what lies beneath. What we see, said Admiral Karath, is a species that will likely destroy itself within the next few centuries. They're not even a threat to themselves, much less to us. Our smallest patrol ship has more firepower than their entire military. The council members began murmuring among themselves. The aquatic delegation from Hydra's Prime bubbled in their water suits, discussing in their musical language. The silicon-based Christarch representatives resonated with harmonic tones. All of them seemed amused by the Guardian's warning. High Counselor Merdena spoke for the group. Respected Elder, perhaps your great age has finally affected your judgment. These humans are barely out of their stone age by galactic standards. They've never even left their own solar system, except for a few tiny probes. Our philosophers have studied their culture, added Professor Kalthara from the Academic Consortium. They're individualistic to a fault. No unified government, no single leadership, no central planning. They can't even coordinate simple things like global responses to their own climate problems. How could they possibly threaten a unified galactic civilization? Zephahai's form began to fade slightly, as if losing strength. We have seen species like yours before. Order-based, logical, predictable. You follow rules and patterns. You can be understood and therefore defeated. And humans don't follow rules? Admiral Karath asked mockingly. Humans make their own rules. Then they break them when convenient. They call it creativity. They call it adaptation. They call it thinking outside the box. HFY's voice carried a weight of ancient memory. We have watched them survive ice ages by wearing animal skins and making fire. We have watched them cross oceans in wooden boats to find new lands. We have watched them split atoms and walk on their moon using computers less powerful than their children's toys. The energy beings' form flickered more rapidly. They do not think like you. When faced with impossible odds, other species surrender or fight logically. Humans do neither. They do something no one expects, something that should not work. And somehow, it works anyway. Representative Volkar from the Mining Guild shook his rocky head. Even if this is true, what can they do? Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are slow. They have no allies, no knowledge of galactic politics, no advanced technology. That, HFY said slowly, is exactly what makes them dangerous. The Guardian's form began to solidify again, as if making one final effort. We plead with you. Mark their system as forbiddance. Create a barrier around their space. Do not approach them. Do not threaten them. Do not try to conquer or help them. Leave them alone and flee to the outer rim galaxies if you must. Give them time to grow and learn wisdom. Admiral Karth stood up, his forearms spread wide in dismissal. Enough of this nonsense. If these humans are so dangerous, why don't you stop them yourself? HFY's energy form dimmed almost to nothing. Because, Admiral Korath, we are logical beings. We think in patterns and possibilities. But humans think in chaos. And chaos cannot be fought with logic. The Guardian began to fade from sight. We have given our warning. We have done what honor requires. What happens next is beyond our control. As HFY disappeared completely, the council chamber abutted in discussion. Some members laughed openly. Others shook their heads at what they saw as the final proof that even the ancient Guardians could lose their minds. Only one member remained silent. Ambassador Krex of the Wanderer Fleet had seen many strange things in the dark spaces between stars. Something about the Guardian's desperate tone worried him, but his voice was lost in the laughter and discussion that followed. The council had made their decision. The human world would be investigated, and Admiral Korath volunteered his fleet to make first contact. After all, how dangerous could primitive humans really be? 3 days after the Guardian's warning, Admiral Korath stood before the full council again. This time, he brought detailed intelligence reports about Earth and its human inhabitants. The massive screens around the chamber displayed images and data that made the council members even more amused than before. Honorable Council, Admiral Korath began, his forearms gesturing toward the displays. I present complete intelligence on the species that supposedly threatens our entire civilization. The first image showed a map of Earth with different colored sections. As you can see, humans have divided their single planet into 195 separate nations. These nations cannot agree on basic matters. They use different currencies, different languages, different laws. They even measure things differently. Some use something called metric. Others use systems based on ancient body parts. High Counselor Merdena's silver tentacles wiggled with amusement. They measure things with body parts? Indeed, feet, thumbs, arms. They call them inches and yards and feet. Their lack of standardization shows their primitive mindset. Admiral Korath switched to the next display. But it gets worse. Look at their conflicts. The screen showed a timeline of human wars. Red markers appeared across the centuries, so many that they seemed to cover the entire timeline. In the last century alone, they have fought 2 massive global wars that killed over 100 million of their own kind. Currently, They have dozens of ongoing conflicts over resources, territory, and beliefs. Representative Thekmer clicked his mandibles. They're still fighting resource wars? Don't they have matter converters? They don't even have basic replication technology, Admiral Korath replied. They grow food in soil like their ancestors did thousands of years ago. They dig metals out of the ground with crude machines. Half their population lacks access to clean water, yet they spend trillions of their currency units on weapons. The next display showed human military technology. Primitive aircraft, ground vehicles with wheels, and ships that move through water instead of flying. Their most advanced weapons are fusion bombs that they cannot even control precisely. They've built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their own planet several times over. But they've never figured out how to use fusion for peaceful energy production efficiently. Professor Kalthara from the Academic Consortium raised one of her crystalline appendages. What about their space capabilities? Admiral Korath's expression became even more amused. They've achieved basic chemical rocket propulsion. They can barely reach their own moon. Their longest-range probe has just recently left their solar system after decades of travel. At their current rate of technological progress, it would take them thousands of years to develop faster-than-light travel. The screen showed images of human spacecraft. Crude metal cylinders that use controlled explosions to push themselves through space. The council members began making sounds of amusement in their various languages. But surely they must have some redeeming qualities, asked Ambassador Krex from the Wanderer fleet, the only member who seemed concerned. Oh yes, Admiral Korath said mockingly. They're very creative. They waste enormous amounts of time and resources on something they call entertainment. They create fictional stories, moving pictures, music, games. Instead of focusing on scientific advancement, they spend their time watching other humans pretend to be different humans in made-up situations. The display showed images from human entertainment. Actors in costumes, musicians with instruments, people chasing balls around fields. They actually pay their entertainers more money than their scientists and teachers. They have individuals who become famous, simply for existing and posting pictures of their daily activities on communication networks. High Counselor Murdena was now laughing so hard her tentacles were changing color. They pay people to exist publicly? Indeed. But here's the most ridiculous part, Admiral Korath continued. They cannot agree on basic facts about their own world. They have different religions that contradict each other. Some believe in multiple gods, some in one god, some in no gods. They fight wars over these beliefs. They cannot even agree on how old their planet is. The screen showed various human religious symbols and scientific diagrams. Some of them reject their own scientific discoveries because they contradict their ancient stories. Others worship science like a religion. They somehow manage to be both overly superstitious and overly skeptical at the same time. Admiral Volkar from the Mining Guild shook his rocky head. How do they accomplish anything with such disorganization? That's the truly amusing part, Admiral Korath replied. They accomplish very little effectively. Their global communication network, which could be used for education and coordination, is primarily used for sharing pictures of their food and small domesticated animals. They've created artificial intelligence systems and use them to generate images of cats wearing clothes. The council chamber filled with various alien sounds of laughter. Bubbling from the aquatic delegation, harmonic resonances from the Christarch representatives, clicking from the hive members. But wait, Admiral Korath said, raising his hands for attention. The Guardian warned us specifically not to threaten them. So let me show you what threatens humans. The display changed to show various Earth disasters. Natural weather events that any civilized species learned to control millennia ago still kill thousands of humans annually. Earthquakes, floods, storms. They have the technology to predict these events, but not to prevent them. They simply accept that their planet will regularly try to kill them. Representative Thekmer clicked curiously. How do they respond to these threats? They make jokes about them, Admiral Korath said with disbelief. They create entertainment about surviving disasters. They actually seek out dangerous situations for fun. They jump off high places with fabric wings. They climb mountains that could kill them. They swim in waters with predatory animals. The images showed humans engaged in what they called extreme sports. Jumping from aircraft, scaling cliffs, diving into deep water with only breathing equipment. They intentionally put themselves in danger for entertainment, Professor Kalthar amused. This suggests either extreme stupidity or what? Asked Admiral Korath. Or they're completely insane, she finished. The laughter in the chamber grew louder. High Counselor Medena wiped moisture from her optical organs. Respected Admiral, after seeing this evidence, I believe the Ancient Guardian has finally lost all reason. These humans are not a threat. They're barely a functioning species. I agree completely, Admiral Korath said, which is why I volunteered to lead a standard first contact mission to their world. We'll offer them membership in the hegemony as a client species under Zefkri protection. They'll be grateful for the opportunity to learn from superior civilizations. The vote was unanimous. The hegemony would make contact with Earth and bring the humans into their alliance. It would be a simple matter of showing them advanced technology and explaining the benefits of galactic citizenship. After all, what could possibly go wrong with contacting a primitive species that couldn't even agree on basic measurements? Admiral Korath began planning his mission immediately. 200 ships would be more than enough to impress the humans and handle any problems that might arise. He was already imagining the commendations he would receive for successfully integrating a new species into the hegemony. The laughter continued long after the meeting ended. 6 months later, Admiral Korath's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 200 ships of various sizes spread out in perfect formation, their advanced sensors immediately scanning everything within range. Report, Admiral Korath commanded from his flagship's bridge. Sir, initial scans confirm previous intelligence, his tactical officer reported. One inhabited world, approximately 8 billion humans. Primitive technology, mostly chemical rockets. They have established a small colony on their fourth planet and several space stations. Admiral Korath nodded approvingly. Any defensive capabilities? Minimal, sir. Nuclear weapons, but no delivery systems that could threaten us at this range. Their largest space-based weapons are kinetic projectiles. Their most advanced ships are slow chemical-powered vessels with basic armor. Perfect. Begin standard first contact protocols. Position the fleet where they can see us clearly and transmit universal greeting frequencies. The hegemony fleet moved into position between Earth and its moon, close enough to be visible to human astronomers, but far enough to avoid any primitive weapons. Admiral Korath expected the standard response: fear, wonder, and eventually submission to superior technology. What happened next surprised everyone. Within 2 hours of the fleet's appearance, every human communication frequency began broadcasting the same message in dozens of languages. The message was being transmitted from multiple locations across Earth's surface and from their space stations. Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Sarachan speaking for the United Earth Defense Coordination. You have entered Earth's solar system without permission or invitation. State your intentions immediately and submit to inspection, or withdraw beyond the orbit of our 9th planet within 24 hours. Admiral Korath stared at his communication officer. Did they just demand that we submit to inspection? Yes, sir. And they're referring to a 9th planet that doesn't exist. Our scans show only 8 planets in this system. Sir, the tactical officer interrupted. We're detecting massive activity on the human world. Military units are moving globally, and they've gone to what appears to be their highest alert status. Admiral Korath watched the tactical display with growing amusement. They're mobilizing against us? With their primitive weapons? He activated the communication system. Human Admiral Chun, this is Admiral Korath of the Zefkri Dominion, representing the Galactic Hegemony. We come offering your species membership in our Grand Alliance. Submit immediately and prepare for integration into our civilization. The response came back within minutes. And it was not what any hegemony species had ever said to a superior force. Nuts. Admiral Korath looked around his bridge in confusion. What does that mean? His cultural officer, a scholarly Talethri, consulted his database quickly. Sir, it appears to be a reference to an ancient human military response meaning no or we refuse. It was used by their soldiers when offered terms of surrender they considered unacceptable. They're refusing our generous offer of alliance? Admiral Korath's forearms gestured in disbelief. Do they not understand what we're offering them? Faster than light travel, unlimited energy, advanced medicine, an end to their wars and conflicts? Apparently not, sir. They're broadcasting new messages now. The human transmission changed to Admiral Chun's voice again. To any aliens listening, Earth is not for sale, not for rent, and not accepting new management. We don't care how advanced you think you are. We didn't ask for your help, and we don't want your alliance. Leave our system now, or we'll make you leave. Admiral Korath decided to demonstrate the reality of the situation. Move 3 ships closer to their world. Show them what real technology looks like. That should convince them to be reasonable. 3 hegemony cruisers broke formation and moved toward Earth, their weapons powered but not armed. They planned to simply hover in Earth's atmosphere and let the humans see technology beyond their understanding. They never made it to the atmosphere. As soon as the 3 ships entered the space between Earth and its moon, humanity did something no species had ever done before. Instead of launching weapons at the alien ships, they launched every nuclear weapon they possessed at their own space infrastructure. Sir, the tactical officer shouted, the humans are destroying their own orbital platforms. Admiral Korath watched in shock as nuclear explosions bloomed around Earth's orbital space. Space stations, mining platforms, communication satellites, everything humanity had built in space was being systematically destroyed by the humans themselves. Why are they doing this? He demanded. Unknown, sir. But the explosions are creating massive debris fields and radiation clouds. Our ships can't safely approach the planet now. Within hours, the space around Earth had become a nightmare of radioactive debris, spinning metal fragments, and electromagnetic interference. Any ship trying to approach would face thousands of pieces of high-speed debris that could damage even advanced hegemony vessels. But the humans weren't finished. Sir, we're detecting launches from their planet's surface. Multiple large rockets heading for the outer system. Evacuation ships? Admiral Korath asked hopefully. No, sir. They appear to be colony ships heading for the asteroid belt. And, sir, they're not using efficient trajectories. They're taking random, unpredictable paths that make no tactical sense. Admiral Korath studied the display showing dozens of human ships, spreading throughout the solar system like seeds in the wind. Some headed for large asteroids, others for small moons, a few toward the outer planets. There was no pattern, no logical strategy. What are they doing? He muttered. His cultural officer spoke up nervously. Sir, I've been monitoring their communications. They're broadcasting music. Music? Yes, sir. Something they're calling war songs. And sir, they're not songs about victory or glory. They're songs about refusing to surrender and fighting until death. Some of them are quite disturbing. One is about preferring to die rather than live under foreign rule. Admiral Korath listened to a translation of one of the songs. The words spoke of dying on one's feet rather than living on one's knees, of fighting against impossible odds, of choosing death before dishonor. The melody was strangely stirring, even in translation. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving another message from the humans." Admiral Chun's voice came through the speakers again. But this time, there was something different about it. Something that made even experienced hegemony warriors uncomfortable. "Alien Admiral Korath, you wanted to see what humans do when threatened. Now you know. We don't surrender, we don't negotiate, and we don't run away. We make the cost of victory too high for anyone to want to pay it. You want our world? You can have the radioactive debris. You want our people? You'll have to catch us first. And Admiral, we're very good at hiding." The transmission ended with something no hegemony officer had ever heard directed at them. Laughter. Not fearful or nervous laughter, but the sound of someone who found the situation genuinely amusing. Admiral Korath stared at the tactical display showing the chaos around Earth. In 6 hours, humanity had turned their own solar system into a hostile environment and scattered themselves across dozens of hidden locations. For the first time since receiving his commission, Admiral Korath felt uncertain about the outcome of a military operation. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "what are your orders?" Admiral Korath looked at the debris field around Earth, the scattered human colony ships, and the radiation readings that made orbital bombardment impossible without risking his own vessels. "Establish a perimeter," he said finally. "We'll wait for them to see reason." But deep in his mind, a small voice wondered if the ancient guardian might have been right after all. 3 months into the siege of Earth, Admiral Korath received a report that made no sense whatsoever. "Sir, the humans have established 17 bases throughout the outer system," his intelligence officer reported. "But sir, they're not following any logical pattern." Admiral Korath studied the tactical display with growing frustration. "Explain." "Well, sir, normal military doctrine would establish bases at strategic points that control resources and supply lines. The humans have put bases in locations that serve no apparent purpose. One is built inside a hollow asteroid that contains nothing valuable. Another is on a moon with no atmosphere and no resources. A third appears to be built just because the location has an interesting view of their star. Are they stupid or are we missing something? That's the problem, sir. We think they might be both." Over the past months, Admiral Korath's perfect siege had become a nightmare of confusion. Every time his forces located a human base and moved to destroy it, something impossible happened. The first base they attacked simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not evacuated, just gone. When hegemony forces investigated, they found a note written in basic galactic standard that read, "Gone fishing. Be back eventually. Please water the plants." There were no plants anywhere in the base. "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "we're receiving another transmission from the human Admiral Chun." "Put it through," Admiral Korath said wearily. "Good morning, Admiral Korath." Admiral Chun's voice came through the speakers cheerfully. "How are you enjoying our solar system? We've prepared some entertainment for you today." Before Admiral Korath could respond, every communication channel in his fleet was suddenly flooded with human music. Not war songs this time, but something called "Never Gonna Give You Up" by someone named Rick Astley. The song played repeatedly on every frequency, making normal communications impossible. "How are they doing this?" Admiral Korath demanded. "We have the most advanced communication systems in the galaxy." "Unknown, sir, but they've somehow turned their primitive FTL communication array into a broadcasting weapon. It's been playing for 3 days straight now, and we can't block it without shutting down our own communications entirely. The song continued playing as Admiral Korath tried to plan his next move. After 72 hours of the same song, half his crew was humming along involuntarily, and several had requested permission to learn the words. But the music was just the beginning. Human ships had begun appearing throughout the system, but they didn't look like any military vessels in hegemony databases. They were ugly, asymmetrical things that seemed to be built from spare parts and held together with hope. When hegemony forces engaged them, the human ships did things that violated every principle of space combat. During one battle, a human ship lost its main engine, and instead of surrendering, the crew began throwing cargo out the airlock to generate thrust. When that wasn't enough, they physically dismantled parts of their own ship and threw those out too. The improvised reaction mass gave them just enough momentum to ram a hegemony cruiser dot in another engagement. Humans pretended to surrender, allowed hegemony forces to approach, then detonated nuclear devices hidden in their own ship's hull. The explosion destroyed both the human vessel and 2 hegemony frigates. Sir, the tactical officer reported after reviewing combat recordings, they're using their own ships as weapons. Deliberately. It's not desperation tactics. It's planned strategy. No species deliberately destroys its own resources, Admiral Korath protested. The humans do, sir. They call it scorched earth doctrine. They'd rather destroy something than let enemies have it. Admiral Korath watched footage of humans destroying their own mining equipment rather than let it be captured. They blew up their own supply depots when hegemony forces approached. They even destroyed artistic monuments rather than let aliens see them. They're destroying their own culture rather than share it? Yes, sir. Although they're also broadcasting it freely on all channels while they destroy the originals. It doesn't make tactical sense. Nothing about human tactics made sense. They sent false surrender signals, then attacked when ships approached. They broadcast their positions openly, then vanished when forces arrived. They left supplies and equipment where hegemony forces could find them. But the supplies were either booby-trapped or contained substances that caused allergic reactions in alien species. Sir, the intelligence officer said hesitantly, the humans appear to be stealing our technology. Impossible. Our security systems are impenetrable. Yes, sir, but they're not penetrating them. They're stealing debris from destroyed ships and somehow making it work. Our engineers say it's impossible, but they're doing it anyway. Admiral Korath reviewed the reports in disbelief. Humans were taking broken pieces of hegemony technology and combining them with their own primitive systems to create weapons that shouldn't function, but somehow did. A human ship had attached hegemony engines to a mining platform and used it as a missile. Another had combined alien shielding with human nuclear reactors to create a device that generated random electromagnetic pulses. How do these hybrid systems work? According to our engineers, they don't work. They should explode or fail immediately. But the humans keep using them successfully. The worst part was that human tactics were becoming increasingly erratic. They would attack, then retreat, then attack again from a completely different direction. They would ignore strategic targets and attack random patrol ships. They would broadcast taunting messages, then disappear for weeks. Then suddenly appear behind hegemony lines somehow. Sir, we've intercepted human communications discussing something called memes. What's a meme? Near as we can determine, it's information that spreads through their culture rapidly. Pictures with text, jokes, ideas. But sir, they're using memes as psychological warfare. Admiral Korath watched as his communications officer displayed captured human transmissions. Pictures of famous human leaders with text like, "Come and take them," and "We haven't yet begun the fight." Images of human soldiers with captions about impossible victory conditions. Jokes about alien invasion movies. They're making jokes about us? Yes, sir. And sir, the jokes are spreading to our own allied species. We've intercepted communications from hegemony, worlds where local populations are sharing human memes and learning human songs. That's impossible. Our allied species are loyal to the hegemony. Yes, sir, but apparently they find human culture interesting. Several worlds have requested copies of human entertainment media. 3 systems have declared independence rather than participate in continued warfare against Earth. Admiral Korath felt a headache developing, which was impressive since his species didn't normally get headaches. Why would they find human culture appealing? Unknown, sir. But humans broadcast everything. Their wars, their losses, their victories, their failures. Other species have never seen such. Honesty from a military force. Most species hide their defeats and only show strength, because showing weakness invites attack. Yes, sir, but humans seem to believe the opposite. They show their defeats and failures, then use them to inspire more resistance. Each loss makes them fight harder, not weaker. Admiral Korath reviewed casualty reports. His forces had lost more ships to accidents caused by human sabotage than to direct combat. Humans had somehow programmed their computer viruses to make hegemony systems play their music. They had reprogrammed life support systems to display human poetry. One ship's food replicators now only produce something called pizza. Sir, Admiral Chen is transmitting again. What now? Admiral Chen's voice came through clearly. Admiral Korath, you seem frustrated. Would you like to discuss terms? You're in no position to negotiate terms. Oh, we're not talking about our surrender, Admiral Chen replied cheerfully. We're wondering if you'd like to surrender to us. We promise to teach you cruise card games and share our family photos. Fair warning though, my grandmother makes terrible cookies, but she insists you try them. The transmission ended with human laughter again. Admiral Korath stared at his fleet status reports. 2 years into what should have been a simple integration mission. He had lost 60 ships. 3 allied species had declared independence. And his own crew was humming human songs. Something was very, very wrong with this war. 2 years into the war, Admiral Korath stood in his command center staring at a galaxy-wide tactical display that showed chaos spreading like a disease. Red warning markers appeared on dozens of worlds throughout hegemony space. The human conflict had somehow spread far beyond Earth's solar system. Report, he commanded, though he dreaded the answer. Sir, the humans have acquired faster-than-light technology, his intelligence officer said nervously. They've combined stolen hegemony components with their own engineering in ways that shouldn't work but somehow do. How many ships? Unknown, sir. Their ships don't follow standard design patterns, so our sensors can't identify them reliably. They could be cargo vessels, passenger ships, or warships. We think they're all 3 at once. Admiral Korath watched the display showing scattered reports of human activity across the galaxy. What kind of damage are they causing? That's the problem, sir. They're not causing damage in any traditional sense. The intelligence officer pulled up specific reports. On Hegemony Station 7, humans infiltrated the traffic control system and reprogrammed it to play something called classical music instead of standard efficiency tones. Productivity actually increased by 15%, and the workers have requested the music continue permanently. On the mining world Kekstara, humans somehow taught the local population recreational drugs derived from a plant they call coffee. The entire planet has become addicted to morning coffee rituals. But mining efficiency has increased by 30%. On the academic world of Talathros Prime, humans introduced competitive games involving kicking spherical objects with their feet. The previously peaceful population now gathers in large groups to watch these games and make loud noises. Civil order has completely broken down, but crime rates have dropped to zero because everyone's too busy watching football. Admiral Karth processed this information with growing confusion. They're not conquering worlds. They're infecting them with their culture? Yes, sir. And sir, the infections are spreading. Worlds that haven't even encountered humans directly are requesting copies of human entertainment media, music, and food recipes. 3 more star systems declared independence last week rather than give up their human cultural imports. The tactical display showed the scope of the problem. Human culture was spreading through the hegemony faster than their actual ships could travel. Species that had never seen a human were learning human languages, adopting human customs, and asking questions about concepts like individual rights and democracy. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a priority transmission from the High Council. The holographic form of High Counselor Merdena appeared, her silver tentacles drooping with exhaustion. Admiral Karth, what is your status? Counselor, the human situation has become complicated. Complicated? Admiral, we have 17-member worlds threatening to leave the hegemony if we don't stop this war immediately. The humans somehow convinced them that self-determination is more important than galactic order. How did they do that? We don't know. They keep broadcasting something they call historical documentaries about their own struggles for freedom. Other species are finding these stories inspiring. Admiral Karth had seen some of these broadcasts. Humans telling stories about their own wars for independence, their struggles against oppression, their fights for individual rights. The stories were accompanied by music that somehow made listeners feel emotions they couldn't identify. Counselor, I request permission to negotiate a ceasefire. Absolutely not. The hegemony does not negotiate with primitive species. Counselor, with respect, the humans are no longer primitive. They've adapted our technology, stolen our cultural concepts, and somehow convinced half the galaxy that their way of thinking is superior to ours. Before the High Counselor could respond, every communication channel in both the fleet and the council chambers was suddenly filled with a familiar voice. Hello again? Admiral Karth and Counselor Merdena. This is Admiral Sarah Chun. We need to talk. How are you accessing our secure communications? Admiral Karth demanded. Oh, that's easy. Your security systems are designed to keep out logical intrusions. We don't do logical intrusions. We do chaotic ones. Your computers don't know how to defend against someone who doesn't follow proper hacking protocols. Admiral Chun's voice continued cheerfully. We've been monitoring your conversations, and we think it's time to end this misunderstanding. Admiral Karth, you seem like a reasonable person who's gotten in over his head. Counselor Merdena, your people are tired of this war, and you know it. The hegemony does not surrender to primitives. Merdena declared. Who said anything about surrendering? Admiral Chun replied. We're talking about coexistence. You go your way. We go ours. You stop trying to conquer us. We stop accidentally infecting your civilization with our chaos. Accidentally? Admiral Karth asked. Well, mostly accidentally. Though we did deliberately introduce coffee to the miners because we thought they looked tired. And the football thing was intentional too, because those academic types needed exercise. But the democracy concept spreading through your outer worlds? That's just happening naturally, because people like the idea of choosing their own leaders. Admiral Karth looked at his tactical display showing the spreading human influence. You're destroying thousands of years of galactic order. Are we? Or are we just giving people choices they never knew they had? The transmission paused. Then Admiral Chun spoke more seriously. Admiral, 2 years ago, you came to our system with 200 ships and demanded our surrender. Do you know how many ships you've lost to direct human military action? Admiral Korath checked his records. 47 ships destroyed in combat. And how many ships have you lost to accidents caused by human activity? 83 ships damaged or destroyed by sabotage, system malfunctions, crew defections. And Admiral Korath paused, reading the full list. Food poisoning from experimentally prepared alien cuisine. Exactly. We've caused more damage to your fleet through pranks and accidents than through warfare. Do you understand what that means? Admiral Korath felt a cold realization creeping through his mind. It means you're not fighting a war. You're just being yourselves. Now you're getting it. Humans don't wage war the way other species do. We don't follow military doctrine or logical strategies. We just do whatever seems like a good idea at the time, and somehow it works out. The bridge fell silent as Admiral Korath processed the implications. Humans weren't trying to defeat the hegemony. They were just living their lives in ways that made ordered civilization impossible to maintain. Admiral Chun, he said finally, I need to speak with someone. 3 days later, Admiral Korath found himself in an unprecedented situation. Requesting a meeting with the ancient guardian who had warned them about humanity in the first place, Elders HFY appeared before him as a flickering energy form, somehow conveying amusement without having a face. You wish to speak with us, Admiral? You tried to warn us, Admiral Korath said, his proud demeanor completely broken. But I don't understand why. Humans aren't the strongest species we've encountered. They're not the smartest. Their technology was inferior. Exactly, HFY replied. Every other species in the galaxy seeks to impose order on the universe. They want things to make sense, to follow rules, to be predictable. Humans don't want order, Admiral. They are chaos incarnate. But how do they function? How do they accomplish anything? They don't function in any way we understand. They shouldn't be able to accomplish what they do. But chaos has its own rules, and humans have learned to ride the storm instead of fighting it. Admiral Korath thought about everything he'd witnessed. You knew this would happen. We knew that any species that tried to impose order on humanity would find that humanity imposed chaos on them instead. You cannot defeat chaos with order, Admiral. You can only hope to survive it. HFY's form flickered more brightly. The irony is that chaos and order can coexist, if order is willing to accept that some things cannot be controlled. But most ordered species cannot accept this. They keep trying to fix what they see as chaos, not realizing that the chaos is working exactly as intended. 6 months later, the Galactic Hegemony signed the first treaty in its history that recognized another species as completely independent. The treaty established a strict non-contact zone around human space and formally acknowledged that humans would continue doing whatever humans wanted to do. In the years that followed, human culture continued spreading through the galaxy in unpredictable ways. Species learned about concepts like individual freedom, creative expression, and questioning authority. Some thrived with these new ideas. Others found them disturbing and moved to the outer rim galaxies to escape human influence. But the galaxy was never the same. In his final report, Admiral Korath wrote, "The humans were right about one thing. Being human is contagious. And I'm beginning to think that might not be entirely bad." Deep in space, Elders HFY observed the changing galaxy with something that might have been satisfaction. The old order was breaking down, but something new and interesting was taking its place. Something chaotic, unpredictable, and somehow wonderfully alive.